Hi, welcome to Spooked with Emma. I'm Emma and this is part 1 of the last 6 days. There'll be 12 parts altogether, so if you enjoy this, please subscribe so you don't miss anything. And if you can't wait for the next part, you can find the link to the paperback and the ebook in the description below. The funny thing about all of this is that I've actually always wanted to write a book. Not like this, obviously, but I always thought that one day I'd be a best-selling novelist and win all kinds of awards. I actually got a 2-1 in comparative literature from the University of Kent, so I'm probably brighter than people who see pictures of me in heat on the red carpet at premieres might think. But I suppose that's where posing for GQ magazine gets you. It does overshadow a degree a bit, I guess. I never wanted to do it anyway. I only agreed to it because my mum persuaded me. She was never very supportive of my literary aspirations, and I think she thought that if I was more well-known, I could get a part in a reality TV series or be paid to be a spokesmodel for handbags or mascara or something. But it didn't happen. It's the kind of thing I think she wishes she'd had the opportunity to do when she was younger, but there wasn't the same celebrity culture in those days. Anyway, if GQ was the biggest mistake I'd made, then I'd have nothing to complain about. I really would have loved to be a writer though. I just never got round to actually writing anything. But if I had done, it certainly wouldn't have been anything like this. Under the circumstances, I doubt this will be anything like as good as I would have liked it to be. Not that it matters. But since it's the last thing I'm going to write, I should have just gone to Paris. That's what I initially thought of doing. But with the Eurostar, I just didn't think it was far enough away from London. Anyway, anywhere would have been better than here though. I could have gone to New York or Los Angeles to take acting lessons. Plenty of people I went to school with have done that. Not that I've seen any of them in films, but I'm sure they're having a lovely time pretending to be trees or something, or learning how to do a shocked face and cry on cue. When I saw Fame, I thought stage school looked like great fun. In reality, I'm not that confident, and I get intimidated by people who are. In any case, I learned my lesson about confusing fiction and reality when I read all those old Enid Blyton, St. Clair's and Mallory Towers books when I was 7, and begged my parents to send me to boarding school. To be honest, I think they were already considering it anyway, so they were only too happy to agree when I suggested it. It didn't take long for me to realise that midnight feasts and nature walks were just for books, and that boarding school was actually an opportunity for girls to bully each other on a full-time basis. Persuading my parents to let me leave proved a lot more difficult, and I ended up being there for 3 years until I was allowed to go to a normal secondary school. Private, of course, but normal in the sense of being in the same school as boys and not having to share a bedroom with 15 other people. I could have even gone to volunteer at an orphanage somewhere. Any of these things would have been better, although in my defence I couldn't have had any idea of what I was letting myself in for here. Anyway, for some reason I was drawn to Madrid. I wanted to do something that wasn't a cliché for someone like me, and Spain seemed quite different and exciting. And at the time I was intent on showing how adventurous and independent I was. That would have worked better if I was actually either of those things, but self-awareness has never been one of my strong points. Now, of course, I wish I had gone anywhere else but here, or just stayed at home, but it's too late for that kind of thinking now. Nobody can help me. Even if they could, who's going to miss me? Nobody knows me here, and my parents are on a cruise, and it will probably take them weeks to even notice that I haven't emailed them. Then they'll probably think I'm just having too much fun to get in touch. But parents just know, don't they? That's what people always say. Maybe not my parents, though. Anyway, how could they know? And how would they find me? Everything happened so quickly that I never even gave them my address here. No. It's impossible. I have to accept that I'm going to die. I read somewhere that Gwyneth Paltrow once thought she was dying during a barbecue. But after being rushed to hospital, she apparently had a migraine and simultaneous panic attack. Lucky Gwyneth. I wish I was just being overdramatic, but no panic attack or migraine could ever be as painful as this. I never could have even imagined this level of pain before. And even now, I can hardly believe that anyone can be in this much pain and still be alive. But I still am, for now at least. It's so ridiculous that it almost seems funny now, but I came to Madrid because I felt like I needed to escape. Now I wonder what I thought I needed to escape from, but at the time I guess I was just depressed and I was desperately trying to work out what would make me feel better. And I just thought that if I went away, everything would be different. And it's true that everything's different here, but I'm not different. I'm just myself with different scenery. So it never would have helped anyway. But people are always talking about going abroad to find themselves, and stupidly I decided that's what I needed to do. Go somewhere where nobody knew who I was and find out who I really was. I don't know what I was expecting to happen really, although I could never have imagined this, even in my worst nightmares. And if I had imagined it, I probably would have decided I was mentally ill and checked myself into a clinic, which in hindsight would have been a much better idea. But this isn't a nightmare, it's real, and there's nothing I can do about it. I wasn't in a great state emotionally when I decided to come here. Ben, my ex-boyfriend, had broken up with me, and for some reason it had hit me hard, who knows why. He never seemed overly keen on me even when we were together, but I guess after 18 months I'd grown attached to him. I think it was the lifestyle I liked more than him anyway. He's an actor, quite a well-known one considering how little acting he's done, even when he manages to get a part. So it meant that I got to go with him to all kinds of glamorous parties and premieres. And I suppose he liked me because my dad's rich. Having no real acting talent means he's got a high profile, but not the money to back it up. He broke off our relationship with the same amount of emotion he displays on screen, and immediately got together with a lingerie model called Sophia, whose father also happens to be rich. Being replaced with a woman who is undoubtedly much more attractive than me didn't do wonders for my self-confidence, and seeing pictures of them together in the tabloids and gossip magazines every day was another reason to get out of the country for a while. I had plenty of money in the bank, plus a regular allowance from my dad, so I couldn't think of a reason not to just go for it. And I didn't have a job keeping me in London. Looking back, I think having some kind of career would have really improved my self-esteem, but I haven't worked at all since I graduated, and that was over 3 years ago. Because my dad's restaurant chain is so successful and he can give me anything I ask for, it didn't really make sense for me to work 40 hours a week in a low-paid job when I didn't need the money. And I never had any particular ambition anyway apart from writing. So I decided it made more sense to get as much life experience as I could for when I eventually got round to writing novels. So even though I was hurt when Ben broke up with me, in a way I felt like it might be a good opportunity to experience something completely different that might give me ideas for a book. I eventually decided that Madrid would be the best place for me, thinking I could see the sights, learn some Spanish, and maybe meet a bullfighter or even a Spanish prince. Talking of Gwyneth Paltrow, I'm pretty sure she used to date one before she married the man from Coldplay. It's probably for the best that it didn't work out. I'm not sure having a future queen called Apple would have gone down brilliantly with the Spanish royal family. Plus, unlike London, Madrid could be relied on to be hot and sunny in August, which I thought might cheer me up a bit. I booked my flights, emailed the first estate agency in Madrid that came up on Google and asked them to find me an apartment, my second mistake. And within a week, I was on my way. I arrived feeling positive about the adventures that lay ahead of me. Most of the people on the plane were holidaymakers, and the fact that I was actually going to be living in Madrid made me feel a bit smug. I had no feeling of impending doom, I just felt more excited and free than I had done for a long time. I knew the weather would be good, but the bright sunshine and the 37-degree August heat still came as a shock after the dreary London weather. It was a jump of almost 20 degrees, and stepping off the plane to walk into Barajas airport, it was almost difficult to breathe. The sun was so bright that even with sunglasses on, I felt like there was someone physically pressing their thumbs into my eye sockets, and I had to shield my eyes with my arm. I must have seemed like some kind of vampire who'd never seen sunshine before, but somehow the heat and the sun made everything seem exciting, and I couldn't help smiling as I headed into the airport. The officer at passport control winked at me as he handed back my passport, and I took it as a good sign, and thought to myself that I'd made the right decision in coming here. After I picked up my luggage, I decided not to brave the Madrid underground on my first day here and headed to the taxi rank instead. Not knowing any Spanish other than a few words I'd picked up mainly from Shakira songs, which didn't seem particularly useful under the circumstances, I greeted the taxi driver in English and showed him the piece of paper where I had written the address of the estate agency. He asked me something in Spanish, but I had no idea what it was or how to reply, so I just shrugged, and we spent the rest of the journey in silence. That was fine with me, as I could look out of the window and take in my new surroundings. As we passed seemingly endless identical blocks of flats on every street, I wondered whether I'd made a mistake in coming here. Obviously I had. Laundry hanging out of windows to dry and skips on the streets with people's rubbish in them were not what I had been expecting at all. But as we approached the city centre, the apartment blocks were replaced by grand, elegant buildings, and the middle-aged women in aprons and headscarves leaning out of their windows to hang out their washing were replaced by glamorous people wandering around or sitting outside bars drinking and chatting. I couldn't help smiling again as I imagined, wrongly, that soon that would be me. Soon we pulled up outside the estate agency, and the driver told me the price in Spanish. I had no idea what he was saying, so I handed over a €50 note and hoped that it would be enough. I got some change, so it must have been, and I handed over a few more coins as a tip after the driver took my suitcases out of the taxi and put them on the pavement. I wanted to ask him to wait so we could carry on to the apartment once I had picked up the keys, but I could envision a long conversation in Spanglish involving a lot of miming and me still not being able to get my message across. So I just smiled, thanked him, in English. I thought about saying gracias, but then I thought I might say it wrong, and he'd laugh at me, and I'd be embarrassed, and anyway it was my first day and I thought I should ease myself in gently, and went inside. As I entered the estate agency, I was immediately greeted in Spanish by a receptionist who was a lot taller and blonder than I'd been expecting. I'd imagined all Spanish women would be petite with long dark hair, but obviously I hadn't properly learned my lesson about believing what I see in films, and had been assuming that all Spanish women would basically be Penelope Cruz, and hoping, of course, that all the men would look exactly like Javier Bardem. The woman asked me something in Spanish, and I hesitated, not knowing what she was saying to me or how to answer. Realizing I didn't understand, and evidently not knowing English herself, she said something else, presumably to wait a second, and hurried off, returning a few moments later with a short, balding man who appeared to be in his 50s. He asked how he could help me, speaking in such a thick Spanish accent that if I hadn't known better, I would have thought was put on deliberately to confuse me. I told him my name, Millie Somerville, and that I was here to collect the keys to my new apartment. He asked me to wait and soon returned with a contract, which I signed without having a clue what it said, or that I was effectively signing my life away. He thanked me and handed over the keys and a card with the address of the apartment. Seemingly reading my mind, he called another taxi for me without me even having to ask, and soon I was on the way to my new home. The apartment was in the centre of Madrid, on a street called Gran Via, on the third floor of a huge old building that must have been a converted stately home or government building or something. The lift was broken, so by the time I got to the apartment I wasn't in the best mood, but that changed when I opened the door and looked around. The main door led straight into the living room, which had beamed ceilings, wooden floors and cream walls with modern furniture in neutral colours, accented with colourful cushions, ornaments and blinds in burnt orange and turquoise. It wasn't what I imagined a traditional Spanish home would look like, but nevertheless it was stunning. There were no doors, but the rooms were separated by partition walls. Behind the living room on the right was the kitchen, and to the left of the living room was the bedroom with an ensuite bathroom. The kitchen was modern with chrome appliances and a black and white colour scheme. There was a small balcony at the back that looked out onto a sunny internal courtyard paved with terracotta tiles, with some kind of tree in the centre, maybe an olive tree or something Mediterranean at least. The bathroom had a Moorish feel, with a sunken bath and overhead shower surrounded by tea lights, and colourful patterned tiles that looked as though they could have come straight from Marrakesh. In contrast to the rest of the apartment, the bedroom was quite old-fashioned and imposing, but still very attractive. All the furniture was dark wood, including a huge four-poster bed that looked as though it should belong to a 17th century monarch, and beneath the window, which let some light into the room but was too high up to see out of, there was a beautiful claret-coloured leather armchair facing the bed. The light shining through a stained glass panel on the wall that separated the bedroom from the entrance hall produced colourful patterns on the wall, which made the room feel cheerful despite the darkness of the decor. The stained glass looked old, and as though it might have come straight from a church. I found the whole place breathtakingly beautiful, but somehow I felt slightly uncomfortable, although I couldn't explain why. When I was about 9, I went to a sleepover once in the school holidays at my friend Marie's house. I'd never been to a sleepover before, although I guess you could say that boarding school is like one big sleepover in a way, so I was really excited about going. I knew they lived in an old stately home, and when we pulled up to the house I thought it was like a beautiful palace from a Disney film. My mum was going through a minimalist phase, so I'd never seen anything like it before and was hugely impressed. But for some reason, once we got inside, the whole place just gave me the creeps somehow. I think it was the suit of armour in the hallway that did it. What if there was a ghost inside it, or a killer? Anyway, when we started playing hide and seek, it all got too much for me and I burst into tears. When they asked what was wrong, I was too embarrassed as I was afraid of the house, so I said I wasn't feeling very well, and Marie's parents rang my dad to pick me up and take me home early. That's how I felt now, except that I couldn't ring my dad and ask him to pick me up, and anyway I was an adult now and not afraid of houses, but something just didn't feel quite right.